I got to thinking, why is it satisfying to stay tidy, clean up after myself, just be on top of things? Is it OCD? Is it some feminine energy inside me? And then I thought to myself, it's probably not any of that. It's more giving hope to my existence rather than it just being a depressing, baneful life. There's something to care for, even as minimal as tidying up your room, cleaning up after yourself, keeping everything clean. It shows you care, you value your life, rather than casting a massive nihilistic shadow to cover up the obvious existential threat we all have deep down in our conscious. No one, even the strong nihilists, I think, are truly unafraid of death deep down. Otherwise, what would be the point of all the crazy things we do and sacrifice just for the future? If we didn't fear death, why do we fear the future? Because if you don't fear truly, zero fear. I don't mean, I'm not scared, bro. I mean, you have such monk-like objectivity in your life, which even those people don't achieve. Why would you think or care about the future? Because in some way, we are all scared of death. We know our existence is coming to an end. And I think it's so easy, especially for climate change activists, to throw this idea out there, which is true to an extent. The world CO2 contribution from humans is probably substantial, but it's nothing compared to what the Earth does naturally. And so it's easy to grab onto that life means nothing because it'll all be destroyed by global warming. That's an easy scapegoat for not making your life better. And I know a lot of these activists whose lives are in shambles because they're casting this nihilistic shadow over the problems they have in their life because nothing matters besides fixing the future, which then comes back around to being afraid of it. And that was kind of a side note tangent about this activists of all kind. Shit, I was an activist. I worked on a campaign, for God's sake. I was so gung-ho for the candidate, and now I'm apolitical. I don't even watch the news. I just realized it was an easier way for me to say, oh, I'm going to change the world rather than just change myself. Because trying to change the world, God, that's like pushing a 1,000-pound anvil up a hill of glass. It's just immense suffering and arguably is impossible. Rather than changing yourself, which is similar to pushing something up a hill, but instead the hill is grassy, it's mountable, and then you're just pushing a boulder. But that boulder starts to feel lighter as you push it further and further up the hill because you're stronger every day from pushing that boulder, even though sometimes it'll roll back down and you have to rest. I was trying to make a good example out of that. There's this old Greek mythology tale about how this man is sentenced to eternal damnation through physical torment of pushing a boulder up a hill till the end of time. And that's essentially the human condition. There is no end to the self-improvement journey. There's no end to some suffering. Because if there was, you would push that boulder to the top of the hill, and then that'd be it. And then what? Even if you got to the top, now there's no meaning. There's no reason to keep pushing yourself forward, because the top of the mountain was all there is. That's what happens to some of these 9-figure entrepreneurs I've been watching on YouTube. And I've done a lot of due diligence, and some of these guys are genuinely filthy rich. There is no end to the journey, which blows my mind. What's all this for then? What are we all chasing? Do you maximize every day by working? I don't know. It's just so subjective. There's almost, I don't know if there will ever be a universal answer to any question. But I think technology is making things easier to self-actualize quicker, which is incredible. It takes off a lot of anxiety, and I believe replaces it with a form of eustress, that you're achieving the goal. You're achieving self-actualization quicker. You're at least chipping away, because of technology, quicker than was ever fathomably possible just 50 years ago. Or excuse me, that would be 70 years ago now, when TVs and whatnot came out. That was revolutionary, the TV. And now we can stream everything from this device, this supercomputer in my pocket. And it also, anyway, I don't want to get off topic. The self-improvement journey never ends, but technology has certainly made it more palatable. You know you're not alone, because you can find so many people on YouTube talking about this. More people come out with their stories of, I overcame this, I repaired this relationship. People like Jordan Peterson, who explains that carrying a load is truly the best thing you can do. But then again, he doesn't even seem completely happy. And then I've been told happiness is not the goal. It's just such a mind F sometimes, dude. But making money is easier than it's ever been before. You can do it from anywhere now. That wasn't possible. That literally was not possible just a little over 30 years ago. And if you were making money from anywhere, you were probably a drug dealer. Just camping out wherever, traveling all over. It's nearly, I can't imagine people in the 80s, if they saw any of this coming, what their idea of the future would have been. Was there much more angst that we haven't talked about because we glorified the 80s so much during that time period, because the future looked relatively bleak compared to how it does now? And I mean that by unplugging all the TV, all the media, everything, and just focusing on how good our lives have gotten. Was there actually more angst in the 80s that we don't talk about? Because again, we glorify the past so much as humans, versus now we realize, holy crap, this future of humanity could be millions time, what am I trying to say? Not millions. It can be infinitely better, but to the point now where we see an avenue to get there, not like this, but like that. Because Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos wouldn't have been talking about Blue Origin and SpaceX back in the 70s. The technology wasn't up to point, or it wasn't up to where it's at now. And these things have been revolutionized by humans just coming in and saying, you know what, I want to build this. Obviously, they need an incentive, which is why capitalism has worked so well. And it has its flaws, but it's one of the best systems we have. It's literally created every luxury of society. Damn near every luxury. It started in the 1600s with the Dutch, and it's now grown to an incomprehensibly big level. We can't just turn it off overnight and say, let's get a new system. And that's one of the stresses people do have about capitalism and just institutions in general that have been I don't want to say that people say this too much, been at the forefront of how society has improved. Whether that be government, the economic systems, religions, all of those things. Unwinding and replacing the current system with something else, it's just not gonna happen overnight. That's for damn sure. That's the crazy thing about it too. But I believe it can happen quicker now because of technology. Back in the day meaning just before the internet, we didn't have the ability to enact change as quickly as we are now. And I think that creates a massive level of anxiety for a lot of people, including me. Things can change like that, and they do, because of technology and social media and access to information that is accessible so quickly. We can have our realities altered within minutes. Every hour we could have a crisis occurring because we just continuously scroll through and see all these news outlets, if you're really plugged into it at least, telling you all these awful things that are happening in the world because it makes them profit. I was there, bro. I was on top of social media, politics, conspiracies. I don't want to really say conspiracies because COVID lockdowns were completely tyrannical. There was no reason we should have done that. And I believe the CDC has even mentioned, yeah, that was not a smart idea. And I don't care that the CDC said that anyway. It's just for a reference. Some of these protocols were truly tyrannical, but I got so stressed out because I was on social media so much and keeping up with the news during the last 2 months of the campaign. It just sent me into overdrive mentally. I quite literally lost my mind after during the campaign I worked on. It was just insane. It was just an insane amount of work. And I was so plugged into the news and everything going on that I knew all the bad things that were happening in the world, because that's what mainly gets put on the news, and almost none of the good. So this is why I don't subscribe to any news outlets. I have 0 social media apps on my phone. I even deleted Facebook, Twitter, for all of those reasons, because it's so distracting and toxic for the most part. And because of that campaign, I just couldn't take it anymore. I was like, bro, this is it. I can't handle this amount of stress. Or excuse me, I can, but it's so stupid, it's so unnecessary. Why would I put myself through this? And that's one of the things that comes to my mind when I pontificate about pushing that boulder up the grassy hill. Why would I put myself through more unnecessary suffering? Well, that's the thing. You make pushing the boulder up the hill as easy as possible. Maybe you get a sweet pair of shoes. Maybe you work out for 5 years before you start pushing that boulder as hard as you can up the hill. It's really hard analogy to explain the constant level of even subtle dissatisfaction with achievements, relationships, etc. that the human condition has. Because if we weren't, and this is just what I've been told, but I've also read it a few spots as well, is our monkey mind, as it's called, had to think negatively, otherwise we might get eaten by a tiger. If you're thinking positive thoughts like, oh yeah, that tiger's nice, I'm just gonna go and pet it, you're dead. Or, oh, I'm sure food will turn up, you're dead. Nowadays in modern society, food is literally deliverable to your doorstep. But apparently, our monkey minds that have evolved in that crisis level of resources has not caught up yet. Evolution has not caught up and shown us, hey, you're gonna be fine. Life is so easy. You have all your natural resources necessary. You have all your needs met. You don't actually need to do anything else. You could just be okay, but you're not. You want to continue becoming better and better. Well, why? Self-actualization, it feels good. It gives us a reason to not think about death. That's probably what it is. Sentience being a gift and a curse in that way, because you're aware you're gonna die and you can therefore maximize your life, but you're also aware you're gonna die. And so we decide, some of us, hopefully more people, to push that boulder, push the boulder. I keep thinking of this goofy ass Greek mythology story. That might not even be a good point. Like, that Greek mythology story could just be like a really dumb example. Who knows? I've ran with that example this entire video, and it could be the stupidest story that anyone's ever come up with. I don't know. But there's a lot of wise teachings in the Greek mythology. It also shows how much humans have evolved since then. They used to worship all sorts of gods. Now it's down to one god, and now it's down to a lot of people not even believing there's a god anymore. Just kind of casting it. These are usually the people that label you based on your birth month. But anyway, that's all I got.